Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to Moaning's IGTV. If you guys are new here, then what's up? My name is Erica, and if you guys are returning here, then you'll know that we are officially on episode 3 of our Plato series, which is halfway through. We only have 6 episodes, so we are now halfway through the Plato series. Super exciting. Also, if you're a regular here, you will know that last episode we discussed Plato's Republic, and I actually got a number of messages. I want to start this episode this way. Got a number of messages from you guys just saying I went a little bit too far in detail in regards to the discussion, and I kind of lost a lot of you along the way. So I want to apologize for that, because obviously Moaning is supposed to simplify all the topics, and I ended up complicating one. So for today's episode, we're going to be making it better by oversimplifying something, which is, I feel like, what I do best. So we're going to oversimplify Plato's Symposium today. So Plato's Symposium, where do we start really? Well, we should probably start with the word symposium. You guys probably are familiar with that word because it's actually kind of a type of, what is wrong with me? It is a type of dinner party that would happen in ancient Athens. Usually it would start around 4 p.m. after you went to the baths or whatever, you got clean. You'd then go over to someone's place and you'd have a dinner party, right? That's basically what it was. So Plato writes of a symposium and writes of the discussion in the symposium. His writing is a dialogue, and we hear about the topics of love and friendship. Now, what the discussion very basically gets into is how to be loved, how to love, and what is love. That's what the discussion really goes into, so it's what we're going to be getting into today. However, what's also important, and I want to harp on, is that Plato's writing is in dialogue form, so we are reading a conversation, and the main person who really puts forward Platonic ideas is Socrates himself. So he's used as a mouthpiece by Plato in order to present these massive topics, basically. So how does this whole dialogue start? Let's get into it, shall we? So the whole dialogue opens with Socrates being late. Straight up. He's late to the dinner party and everybody's like, dude, what the fuck, you had one job? And he's like, I'm so sorry, I got lost on a porch. But he ends up getting lost. He ends up showing up. I mean, at the end of the day, he shows up, they eat, and it gets to the end of the meal. And this guy, under this name, we're going to put it up over here instead of over there. I usually do it over there, but whatever. We're going to put it up over here. This guy, he starts off the conversation by saying, all right, now that we've eaten, now that you're all fed, what about we get your brains working? And we all think of what it means to love. What about we discuss love? What the fuck is love? Let's all talk about it. So everybody puts their thinking caps on, and the first guy to really say anything is this guy is Phaedrus. And Phaedrus, I don't know if that's actually how you say it, by the way. Greek people, correct me. But Phaedrus starts the conversation, and he's like, well, Eros is the god of like lust and love. So what love is love is a god that teaches us about our virtues. Not a bad opening statement, honestly. It's a pretty deep fucking opening statement. And Pausanias hears this and is like, yo, actually, I kind of agree, but there's also 2 different types of love. So not only is Eros one of the oldest gods, which we have a whole Eros episode, by the way, which you guys should watch. But not only is that, but there's also 2 different types of love that he puts forth. One of them is common love, which is kind of like very simple and mindless and that sort of jazz. And then there's heavenly love, which is between 2 men. Interruption! Okay, so you probably all were just like, excuse you, bitch, what the fuck did you just say? Okay, I'm paraphrasing, by the way, but essentially what he says is that it's between 2 men. Now, what is this in ancient Greece? In ancient Greece, there's this word. Okay, this word is a super important word, and the reason why I wanted to interrupt my little spiel about Plato, because this word is an ancient Greek word which describes men-on-men relationships. Woohoo! You guys probably didn't know this word existed. So basically, we won't get into the etymology of it, but basically in ancient Athens, it was very, very normal for 2 men to have sex. That was totally normal, and it was normalized because they had a whole word for it. And what this is, it was an older man and a younger man. They would hook up and have sex. The older man would offer like education for the younger guy, whether it was sexual or wisdom or life lessons or whatever. The younger man would take this on, and then he would end up getting married to a woman, and then he would therefore know how to like please his lady and like be a man. Like that was how you were taught how to like be a man. Which I know a lot of you probably haven't heard before, but it is a term that happened in ancient Greece, that this was a very normal thing. Now, you're probably all wondering, well, that means that they're gay. 1, don't label people like that. Not fair. 2, in ancient Greece, actually nobody got married because they were in love with the person that they married. So marriage at the time was completely different. In fact, you would marry somebody who was simply the best candidate, who could give you probably the best looking kids, you would have the best job opportunities, you would be able to make the most money, it made most sense for the rest of your family. Like, you weren't marrying somebody you loved, who gave a shit. And 3, LGBTQ stuff was not the same in the ancient world because of marriage, okay? So even though, yes, we have lots of people that we now label as lesbian or gay, you know, like Sappho or Achilles, were like, they were definitely gay. Don't do that in regards to the ancient world, because they didn't say it, they didn't have words for that, they had this word and that was about it. So I want to refrain everybody from either labeling people, stop doing that, it's not cool to do that now, it's not cool to do that with the ancient world, and also to remember that this word exists and that people actually in ancient times, I mean, there probably were homophobes in ancient times, but because this word exists, please don't go into a classroom, which has happened a number of times for me. Don't go into a classroom and be like, everybody before this period were homophobes. Nope. They all had sex with each other in ancient times. Totally normal. Anyways, end of interruption. So after that, we have the guy who led the whole conversation in the beginning. He chimes into what the definition of love is. And he says, you guys both said that it was between people, essentially. You said that it was a very human thing. But actually, I want to argue and say that love can be between someone and something. So he was like, you know, I love medicine. That's also love. Or you can love, I don't know, what do you love? Whoever you're sitting at home with or whatever, ask yourselves, what is the thing that you love? Like skateboarding, maybe? Coffee, that's what's in here today. I do actually have something in here today. You know, I love coffee. He was saying that still counts as love. So that was his definition of love. At this dinner party, we also have Aristophanes. Now, Aristophanes is a very famous playwright, and he's the guy who actually puts forward this myth that you guys have probably heard. It's yapped upon for ages and ages on YouTube, and it's this whole myth where actually humans were at one point, like 2 people were one, and so we had like 2 heads and 4 arms and then it was kind of bullshit. And that actually Zeus saw us as a threat, and so he split everybody in half, and love is what we do when we meet our other half, and our soulmate, the person who completes us. That's what Aristophanes says. So we spend our whole life looking for our other half, who we were once joined to anyways, and then we end up marrying that person, falling in love with that person, right? Which I think is a bunch of baloney, but like whatever. And then lastly, we have the viewpoint that is put forward by Agathon. That's it. I was trying to remember his name. I was like, fuck, I'm saying this sentence, I don't remember his name. But anyway, so Agathon, he's the last person to put forward a very important viewpoint of what love is. And he says, well, love is young, wise, and sensitive. And therefore, to have love is to have virtues. Now, obviously, in all the arguments that I put forward, there is a lot more discussion that goes into it. So when you read the book, don't be shocked that people aren't just saying this outright. This is me paraphrasing massively what they're saying. But it's the basic gist of the conversation. And it's Socrates who sort of comes into the conversation and he says, look, Agathon, that's wrong. I mean, he doesn't verbatim say that, but in my head, when I read it, I'm like, Socrates is basically telling this guy to shut the fuck up. So Socrates says, that's not right, and nobody else is right about what love is, and that's because all of you are discussing a specific instance of love, rather than what love is really. You're all describing love and describing the emotions and the situations that love exists in, but not what love really is. So Socrates then puts forward this argument that some lady that goes under this name told him. And he says what love actually is that love is a spirit, basically, not a god. Love is a spirit, a more so entity that exists between a person and their desires. Now, those desires can be anything, but Socrates says that love is the desire for beauty and for wisdom. Socrates says that the greatest knowledge of love is the knowledge of a form of beauty that you desire. That is essentially the argument that Socrates puts forward. Now, he harps on, believe me, he harps on for ages about the fact that everybody is simply talking about their own instances in regards to love rather than love itself. So he kind of, and actually we can kind of look at everybody's argument in that way too. So if we go to Pausanias and Phaedrus, who are the first 2 people to put forward their arguments, he says, well, those are the only things that you've experienced. You've only ever experienced love as a virtue and love from other men. So of course you think that that's what love is, when you're not describing love, you're simply describing a situation where possibly love existed. Then if we move on to look at this guy, by the way, if we go on to look at this guy's argument, he's a doctor. So of course he thinks, well, I love medicine, therefore that counts as love too. But that once again is describing a situation where love exists and not love itself. Aristophanes, being a playwright, he uses a theatrical example for love. You know, he uses this whole weird myth that he basically makes up on the spot, and everybody's like, well, of course, because you're a playwright. And then we have Agathon, who just says something really depressing, really, at the end of it. He's just like, it's young, it's sensitive, and blah, blah, blah. So, of course, those are all people's very personal experiences with love that are coming forward in their definition of what love is. But the correct way to be led to love, according to Plato, is said through Socrates. And we need to remember that actually it's Plato who's using Socrates to put forward his own views of love and say, actually, you're all wrong, because Socrates said that you were wrong, when really it's just Platonic ideas, but through Socrates' mouth. So in summary, all of their ideas of what love is, they're not defining what love is, they're just saying specific instances in where love existed. Now, there's a character that I haven't discussed, and he's quite complicated, but he's quite important, and he goes under this name. Now, this guy speaks about his love for Socrates. He's one that all the other characters say, oh my god, he's so undeniably in love with you. Now, I mean, he is, okay? This is a guy who literally is falling over himself to seduce Socrates and can literally never catch a motherfucking break. Like, Socrates does not give two. But what we see through this character, and what's very, very important through this character, is seeing the complexity of how love exists in regards to someone's desires. Now, not only he is in love with Socrates, but there are also two other characters even, who also, here are the three names, the two other characters are also in love with Socrates. Now, what all of these guys have in common is that they're in love with an illusion of Socrates. One of them, I can't remember which one off the top of my head, but one of them, I'll just highlight their name, they actually don't even wear shoes to express their love for Socrates, because they're like, I want to be more like Socrates, and so therefore I'm not going to wear shoes, like Socrates doesn't wear shoes. And then we have the first guy who is completely in love with an illusion that he's created of Socrates. He's sort of decided that Socrates is a super sensitive and great person underneath his very harsh exterior, and he's like, I'm completely in love with that Socrates. But that's also just an idealized version of Socrates that he's created, where he's like, Socrates must be gooey underneath all of that. So I'm completely in love with that version of Socrates, but that's not actually a Socrates that exists. It's just one that he desires. And it's also important to look at these three guys and their reaction to Socrates and suggest that possibly it's not that they're in love with Socrates. It's actually the fact that they're in love with the certain qualities that they want in themselves that they are now projecting onto Socrates. Right? I do have a lot more to say, but I'm really worried that I already overcomplicated that discussion of love. And honestly, what it basically teaches us at the end, like a nice sort of summary, is that this idea of love that most people fall into is this idea of seeing something good and wanting to ensure that that thing stays in your life. And so therefore you love that thing so much that you know, it doesn't disappear. Whether it's because you actually love it because it's its own entity, or because it's an entity that you wish that you had, a quality that you wish that you had, which is in the case of the guys who fell in love with Socrates, that sort of thing, is very much up for debate. And lots of philosophers and students and teachers take it in multiple different ways, which is why I don't like to analyze these things in the videos, because the way that I analyze, the way that I read a text is going to be different to how you read the text. And what I take away from the text is going to be different to what you take away from the text. So I don't want to sum it up by being like, this is the basic definition, because at the end of the day, what Socrates says is that love itself is just something between us and our desires. That's what love is that when you desire something, you end up loving it, whether it's because you want it or because you desire for it to be a part of you, whatever it happens to be. That's the definition of love according to Socrates, basically. But yeah, that's basically the discussion of the Symposium. There's a lot more detail. There's so much more detail. Like, I literally just oversimplified that to the point where even I'm like, I don't know if anybody followed that. It was way too simple. So if you guys didn't leave a comment, I'll re-record the video, but I'll just upload this one as it is, let you guys watch it, and you guys tell me what you think, and we'll navigate this whole series the way that it fits you guys best, because the way that it fit me best for last episode didn't work. This episode might not work. We'll figure it out together though. So if you're going to take one thing away from this video in regards to the Symposium, just remember that the Symposium is about love and about the definition of love and what it means to love. But yeah, thank you guys for tuning in. If you guys haven't already, then please like this video. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel if you're on YouTube. Obsessed with you guys who are doing that. So thank you so much for tuning into this episode. I hope that it does help you on a very basic level in understanding Plato's Symposium. And next time we'll be discussing, next week we'll be discussing the Phaedo, Timaeus, and Plato's Apology. So stay tuned for that. Thank you guys so much, and we'll see you then.